What if everything you've been told about Stoicism is wrong? We hear it everywhere. Be Stoic. Control your emotions. Never complain. Never react. It's a philosophy that has been embraced by CEOs, athletes, military leaders, and self-help gurus, all praising it as the ultimate mindset for strength, resilience, and success. A Stoic, they say, is someone who remains calm under pressure, who endures suffering without breaking, who accepts whatever happens without resistance. It sounds like a philosophy of discipline, of power, of control. But what if this version of Stoicism is not what the ancient Stoics actually taught? What if the way we practice it today is not only incomplete, but dangerously misleading? Because somewhere along the way, Stoicism was repackaged, not as a philosophy of wisdom and balance, but as a tool for extreme self-discipline and emotional suppression. It became a mindset that tells people to ignore their feelings, tolerate suffering at any cost, and accept their fate without question. And that's the problem. If you misunderstand Stoicism, it won't make you stronger. It will make you numb. But that was never its purpose. To understand what Stoicism really is and what it isn't, we need to go back. Back to Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. Back to the real Stoic teachings that most people have forgotten. Because if we don't uncover the truth, we risk turning one of the most powerful philosophies in history into a hollow excuse for passivity and detachment. This is the dark truth about Stoicism, what they don't tell you. What if everything you've been told about Stoicism is wrong? We hear it everywhere. Be Stoic. Control your emotions. Never complain. Never react. It's a philosophy that has been embraced by CEOs, athletes, military leaders, and self-help gurus, all praising it as the ultimate mindset for strength, resilience, and success. A Stoic, they say, is someone who remains calm under pressure, who endures suffering without breaking, who accepts whatever happens without resistance. It sounds like a philosophy of discipline, of power, of control. But what if this version of Stoicism is not what the ancient Stoics actually taught? What if the way we practice it today is not only incomplete, but dangerously misleading? Because somewhere along the way, Stoicism was repackaged, not as a philosophy of wisdom and balance, but as a tool for extreme self-discipline and emotional suppression. It became a mindset that tells people to ignore their feelings, tolerate suffering at any cost, and accept their fate without question. And that's the problem. If you misunderstand Stoicism, it won't make you stronger, it will make you numb. But that was never its purpose. To understand what Stoicism really is and what it isn't, we need to go back to Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. Back to the real Stoic teachings that most people have forgotten. Because if we don't uncover the truth, we risk turning one of the most powerful philosophies in history into a hollow excuse for passivity and detachment. This is the dark truth about Stoicism, what they don't tell you. For centuries, Stoicism has been a philosophy of wisdom, resilience, and virtue. But today, it has been transformed into something else, something far more rigid, something that strips away its original depth and replaces it with a shallow, emotionless shell. People now wear Stoicism like armor, believing that to be Stoic means to never show weakness, never express emotions, never let anything affect you. They tell themselves, don't feel, just endure. Never let emotions cloud your judgment. If you suffer, suffer in silence. And at first glance, this might seem like true Stoicism. After all, isn't this exactly what Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus taught? No, not even close. This is not Stoicism. This is suppression. The ancient Stoics never said you should ignore emotions or pretend they don't exist. They never said you should endure suffering without taking action. They never said you should blindly accept everything that happens to you. Yet, these dangerous misconceptions are everywhere, and they're turning one of history's most powerful philosophies into a tool for self-destruction. One of the biggest myths about Stoicism is the idea that a Stoic should be cold, detached, and emotionally indifferent. That true strength comes from never feeling anything. But if you read the writings of Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, you'll see something completely different. Marcus Aurelius, often seen as the embodiment of Stoicism, openly wrote about his struggles with anger, sadness, frustration, and doubt. He reflected on these emotions, analyzed them, and sought to control them, not by erasing them, but by understanding them. Seneca wrote long letters about grief, loss, and the fear of death. His words weren't those of a man trying to suppress his emotions, but of someone learning to navigate them wisely. A real Stoic does not ignore emotions. They confront them, they understand them, they master them. But today, many take Stoicism as an excuse to shut down, to avoid vulnerability, to act as if nothing ever affects them. That is not strength, that is avoidance. Modern interpretations of Stoicism often portray a Stoic as someone who is completely unshaken by everything, who remains still, silent, and unaffected no matter what happens. But the ancient Stoics never preached passivity. They never said that you should accept suffering without resistance. Take Epictetus, for example. He was born into slavery. He lived under brutal conditions, yet he did not simply accept his fate and stay silent. He learned, he questioned, he sought wisdom, and when he gained his freedom, he taught others to do the same. The Stoics were not passive observers of life. They were active participants. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor who led Rome through wars and crises. Seneca was a political advisor navigating one of the most dangerous courts in history. These men engaged with the world. They didn't just sit back and endure suffering. But today, many people misinterpret Stoicism as a philosophy of inaction, as a reason to tolerate toxic environments, abusive relationships, or terrible circumstances under the false belief that a Stoic must accept everything. But that is not wisdom. That is submission. Another dangerous misinterpretation is the idea that Stoicism teaches people to accept their fate without question, to embrace whatever happens with silent obedience. This comes from the Stoic principle of amor fati, the love of fate. It's the idea that we should embrace reality as it is, without wasting energy fighting things we cannot change. But does that mean the Stoics believed in blind acceptance? In doing nothing? Absolutely not. Marcus Aurelius may have believed in accepting the flow of the universe, but he also made decisions that shaped history. Epictetus may have believed in adapting to life's hardships, but he also taught that we must act when we can. The real lesson of amor fati is not passivity, it's clarity, knowing when to let go and when to take action. Yet today, many people misinterpret this idea as an excuse to stay stuck, to tolerate misery, injustice, and suffering under the false belief that being Stoic means never pushing back. But the Stoics were not passive philosophers sitting in silence. They were warriors, rulers, and thinkers who shaped history. So how did Stoicism go from a philosophy of wisdom and action to a mindset of suppression and endurance at all costs? The answer is simple. Somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing Stoicism as a guide for living well and started seeing it as a tool for emotional detachment and extreme self-discipline. And this misunderstanding has led to dangerous consequences. People using Stoicism as an excuse to ignore their emotions instead of learning from them. People staying in toxic situations because they think a Stoic must endure without complaint. People becoming numb, disconnected, and emotionally distant, believing that this is what it means to be strong. But if we misunderstand this philosophy, we might not become wiser, we might become empty. So what did the Stoics actually teach? And how can we apply their wisdom without falling into these modern traps? Stoicism was meant to be a philosophy of wisdom, action, and balance. But when it is misunderstood, it can become something entirely different, something harmful, something that does more damage than good. One of the greatest dangers of modern Stoicism is that it teaches people to suppress their emotions instead of understanding them. Many who embrace Stoicism today believe that emotions are a sign of weakness. They convince themselves that true strength comes from never feeling pain, never showing vulnerability, never being affected by anything. But the result is not resilience, it's emotional numbness. Instead of confronting their emotions and learning to manage them, many people use Stoicism as an excuse to shut down completely. They ignore sadness, they bottle up anger, they push away love and connection, thinking that this makes them stronger. But this isn't Stoicism. This is avoidance. And avoidance always comes at a cost. When emotions are ignored for too long, they don't disappear. They build up, they fester, and eventually they break through in destructive ways. Anxiety, depression, emotional detachment, these are not signs of strength. They are symptoms of a misapplied philosophy, one that tells people to endure everything, but never process what they are enduring. Another danger is that misunderstood Stoicism can lead to passivity. Many people take the Stoic idea of acceptance to mean that they should simply tolerate whatever happens to them. They tell themselves that a Stoic does not complain, a Stoic does not resist, a Stoic does not fight back. This mindset can be incredibly dangerous. It convinces people to stay in toxic relationships, to endure mistreatment at work, to accept injustices as if they are inevitable. But the true Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, were not passive men. They were leaders, warriors, and thinkers who engaged with the world, who took action, who shaped history. Epictetus, a former slave, did not simply accept his fate. He gained his freedom, became a philosopher, and spent his life teaching others how to do the same. Marcus Aurelius, despite believing in the Stoic principle of amor fati, did not sit back and let the world unfold around him. He ruled an empire. He fought wars. He made difficult decisions that affected millions. Yet modern Stoicism is often reduced to a mindset of silence, stillness, and inaction. It teaches people to endure rather than to change, to tolerate rather than to act. But endurance without action is not wisdom. It is surrender. Another common mistake is using Stoicism as an excuse to disconnect from others. Many people believe that being Stoic means being independent to the point of isolation, that to be strong is to need no one, to feel nothing for anyone, to walk through life alone. But the ancient Stoics understood that humans are social beings, that our connections with others are a fundamental part of life. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about duty, about kindness, about fulfilling one's role in society. Seneca spoke about friendship, about love, about the importance of meaningful relationships. To the Stoics, being strong did not mean shutting people out. It meant showing compassion, acting with integrity, and contributing to the greater good. But today, many use Stoicism as a way to justify emotional detachment. They tell themselves that needing others is a weakness, that vulnerability is something to be avoided, that caring too much is a mistake. But what they fail to realize is that the greatest strength is not in isolation. It is in connection. When Stoicism is misunderstood, it does not make people stronger. It makes them distant. It does not create resilience. It creates numbness. It does not lead to wisdom. It leads to avoidance. So if we are going to practice Stoicism, we must do it the right way. We must understand not just the words of the Stoics, but the meaning behind them. We must apply their wisdom as it was meant to be applied, not as a tool for suppression, but as a guide for living well. Because true Stoicism is not about shutting down. It is about opening up to challenges, to change, to life itself. And if we fail to see this, then we are not following Stoicism at all. We are simply running from ourselves. So what does it actually mean to live as a Stoic? How can we apply this philosophy in a way that strengthens us without making us numb, that makes us resilient without making us passive? If there is one thing we must take away from Stoicism, it's this. It was never meant to make us indifferent. It was meant to make us wise. The Stoics did not teach people to suppress emotions, to accept suffering blindly, or to detach from the world. They taught balance. They understood that life is unpredictable, that pain is inevitable, that loss is unavoidable. But they also understood that how we respond to these things is what defines us. A Stoic does not pretend that emotions don't exist. A Stoic feels everything: anger, sadness, joy, grief, fear, but does not become controlled by these emotions. A Stoic is not someone who endures suffering without question. A Stoic knows when to endure, but also when to act, when to fight, when to change their circumstances. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. Seneca navigated the dangers of Roman politics. Epictetus broke free from slavery and spent his life teaching others how to master their minds. These were not passive men. These were thinkers and doers. Stoicism, at its core, is a philosophy of clarity. It helps us see what is in our control and what is not. It teaches us how to let go of what we cannot change while taking full responsibility for what we can. It is not a rejection of life. It is a guide to embracing it fully, with courage and purpose. But most importantly, Stoicism teaches us that strength is not found in suppression, in silence, or in isolation. Strength is found in understanding ourselves, understanding our emotions, understanding the world around us so that we can act. Not out of fear, not out of impulse, but out of wisdom. So the real question is, will you use Stoicism to become numb or to become stronger? Will you use it to suppress your emotions or to master them? Will you use it as an excuse to do nothing or as a tool to live fully? Because that choice is the one thing that is always within your control. If this video made you think differently about Stoicism, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. It really helps bring deep discussions like this to more people. We explore the biggest questions of philosophy, self-discovery, and the human experience every week. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Thank you for being part of this journey. See you in the next one.